All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a concept we all think we get, power. But trust me, we're going to look at it through a lens that might just flip how you see everything.
Okay, so let's just start with a quick thought experiment. When I say the word power, what do you see? What's the very first image that pops into your head?
I'm willing to bet you pictured something like a king on a throne, right? Or maybe a president behind a big desk, a CEO in a boardroom, basically someone at the top telling everyone else what to do and, more importantly, what not to do.
And look, that's our common sense view of power. It feels right. But what if I told you it's, well, not wrong, but it's a super tiny piece of the puzzle? Because this philosopher, Michel Foucault, he came along and offered a completely radical and frankly way more interesting way to think about all of this.
Okay, so to really get what Foucault's talking about, we need a little context. He wasn't just pulling these ideas out of thin air. He was working within a field called political sociology, and it's all about exploring these exact kinds of questions.
So what is that, exactly? Well, at its core, political sociology looks at how power gets spread around in a society and what the ripple effects are. And we're not just talking about presidents and parliaments. We're talking about power all the way from the state right down to the dynamics in your own family.
And this quote from Michael Rush just nails it. You can't understand a society without understanding its politics, and you can't understand the politics without understanding the society. They're two sides of the same coin, totally intertwined. And guys like Foucault, they're absolutely central to this whole way of thinking.
All right, so let's dive into Foucault's big ideas. And a really great paper by Nicholas James in the Bond Law Review does a fantastic job of breaking down how Foucault's insights just completely flip our usual understanding of power on its head.
And this comparison right here, this is the whole game. The common view, it's power as a sledgehammer. It's negative, it's held by a few people, and it says no. Foucault's view, totally different. He says, think of power less like a sledgehammer and more like a network of tiny blood vessels, capillaries, that run through the entire social body. It's everywhere. It's not a thing you can possess, it's a relationship you're constantly in.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit more with a few key insights. And we'll start with the most fundamental one, the one you really have to get before anything else makes sense.
And here it is. Power isn't inherently a bad thing. Yeah, I know. That's the first big hurdle we have to get over. Foucault says we're just plain wrong to see power as only this negative, repressive force. For him, it's neutral.
I mean, listen to this quote. Power doesn't just shut things down. It creates things. It induces pleasure, forms knowledge, produces discourse. It's a productive network. It shapes our reality, what we think is true, and even what we want in the first place. And he makes a great point. If power was only about repression, why on earth would any of us ever obey it?
So, if power is this productive network, that leads us right to the next big kind of mind-bending idea. And that is, power is absolutely everywhere. It's not just locked up in the government or held by billionaires. Because it's a relationship, it's happening all the time. It's in schools between a teacher and a student. It's in a hospital between a doctor and a patient. It's in families. It's in pretty much every single social interaction we have. You literally can't escape it.
And here's the cool part. Wherever you find this power, and we just established it's everywhere, something else always inevitably pops up right alongside it.
And that's resistance. See, for Foucault, power is never, ever a one-way street. It always creates a pushback, a counterforce. Resistance isn't some special event that happens once in a while. It's a constant, built-in feature of power itself. So, okay, we've said power is this productive network. But what does it actually produce? Well, the answer is kind of huge and maybe a little unsettling. It produces reality itself, what we accept as being real.
Yeah, just let that sink in for a second. Power produces reality. It produces truth. Foucault's argument is that our entire sense of what's true is a direct result of these power relations. So what counts as a fact? What's considered normal? What do we believe is right? All of it, he says, is shaped by power.
So think about it. When you see two sides arguing, in politics, on the news, wherever, these competing claims to truth are actually what he calls vectors of power. Foucault would tell us to stop asking who's right and who's wrong and start asking a different question. What is this power play trying to do? What version of reality is each side fighting to create?
So, why does this matter? How does this change anything?
Well, let's put this Foucauldian lens to work on something we all see every day, the culture wars.
So you see these lists of terms, right? Words that get thrown around all the time. Now, instead of just picking a side and getting mad, let's use Foucault's idea. These aren't just simple insults. They're weapons. They are strategies of power. Every single one of those words is an attempt to define reality in a certain way, to box in the other side, and to basically invalidate their whole worldview. And this is the key. The point isn't to use this analysis to decide who's right or who's wrong. The point is to see the state of affairs, the battle itself, more clearly. It's like stepping out of the trenches and onto a hill overlooking the battlefield. Suddenly, you're not just a soldier in the fight. You can see the strategies, the troop movements, and what both sides are really trying to do.
Look, this whole way of reframing power, it comes from a really deep and, yes, sometimes challenging analysis of Foucault's work. And the goal here isn't to make you a card-carrying Foucauldian who agrees with everything he ever wrote. It's about giving you a new set of tools, a new lens, to become a sharper, more critical observer of the world.
So, what's the big takeaway? This new way of seeing power, it doesn't just apply to politics with a capital P. It applies everywhere, to your job, to your friend group, even to the dynamics at your family's dinner table. Which leaves us with one last, kind of provocative question to think about. Now that you see power not as a thing to be held, but as this invisible network of relationships, where are you going to notice it next?